So 6.4 and 6.5 are talking about verb classifications. I don't think these are important. I will explain them in a general sense in case you actually want to know it, but I don't think it's helpful. I think it's trying to show how to conjugate certain words, but I think it's better to just literally case by case, word by word, memorize what it's supposed to sound like. And a lot of the time these rules are way too specific and they don't really make that much of a difference in the pronunciation, so I don't think they're worth memorizing. What it's trying to say is that it has something called 3 radical verbs, type A and type B. A radical is just a consonant. It's just a fancy word for it, and it numbers these consonants. So if there's a infinitive version of a verb that looks like this, it'll have one consonant here, 2 doubled consonants here, so some sort of different letter is used here, and then a 3rd consonant, and then that will affect how it gets conjugated. This is showing like a type A and type B infinitive. So here, this type A infinitive is going to have an ME, a 1, a 2, and then a 3. So the example is meneged, so M doesn't count in this case. N and G are 1 and 2 respectively, and then R is the 3rd. Type B would be a 1, E, 2, 2, so the same consonant doubled, E, and then some 3rd one. So mefelig would count for this. F would be 1. Both these 2's are the 2 L's. G is the 3, and this is 2 want. Same concept. So then basically it's saying like, okay, so that's the type of infinitive that it is. In the imperfective, this is how you change it. So because this is a type A, and I think in this case it's a 3 radical verb because it has 1, 2, 3 radicals, you're gonna take it and modify it in a certain way. And I think it tries to show that here, where if the infinitive is this type A radical, the imperfective is gonna look like this. It's gonna have, just have a 1, the first consonant or radical, the E, and then the 2, 3. So mowesid will become yuwesidal. If it's a type B infinitive, and this is where the big difference comes in, where you have 1, 2, and 3 in this format, the consonant before the 3rd radical is going to change into an I. So mefelig is affected by this, and it sounds more like yefelegal, where it's an I here rather than an E. Honestly, if you said yefelegal with an E, it doesn't really make that much of a difference in how it sounds, and people will be able to understand you. But that's the big takeaway from being able to recognize this. And then there are all kinds of classifications. There are so many, and they get so technical and complex, it's really not worth it, in my opinion, to try and learn. Because now it talks about these 2 radical verbs, and it's saying like, okay, you're just counting the radicals in the middle as 1 and 2, because this M and this T end up getting chopped off anyway, so that's usually why they're not counting it. So what will happen is that in the perfective, you're going to keep the first radical, you're going to add an E here, and then you're going to double the 2nd radical, and then, that's what it'll be. So meserat will become sera with these 2 R's, and then E put in between the S and the R here, and then, some other rules here. And you can just kind of I don't think I need to explain anymore because you can kind of read it and figure out what the pattern is supposed to be. Again, I don't think it's worth knowing that. 6.5 is saying that from now on in the textbook, there's going to be a certain format that they introduce new verbs, and it's going to be a version of showing the infinitive, perfective, and imperfective. So the example here would be for the word to take. Weseda is the perfective of this word, and it's for 3rd person masculine, so it's he, whatever, and it's in this case it's he took. Mowesid is the actual infinitive version of to take, so to take and mowesid are equivalent in meaning. Yuwesidal is the imperfective 3rd person masculine, so it means he will do something, or he is doing something in the present tense for certain words. So in this case, it means he will take. And from now on, this is how they're going to introduce new words. So mehi to go would be like he went, to go, he will go. I think understanding this format is important for seeing new words, but I would mostly focus on this infinitive portion because it doesn't really show it here. But if you try to go from the perfective back to the infinitive, the only issue is if the word ends with a T, you don't necessarily know if you're going to have to add a T back on, or if the T was never there in the first place and that last consonant that you're adding, this D here, is the last consonant. So maybe it's mowesedet or something like that, and there's normally a T here. You wouldn't be able to go from the perfective back to this infinitive without knowing that ahead of time. So that's why I always think it's best to just start off from the infinitive and then go to the perfective or imperfective, which is the whole reason why I did lessons 1 and 2 early on in the Learn to Speak Amharic series, to basically avoid that issue. 6.6 postpositions. Luckily, these are much easier than what they may seem like. Here are the postpositions. If you have ke before a word and then God after it means with that word. If you have ke before a word and then bafit after that word, it means before whatever it is. And then if you have ke with that before a word and then behwala after, it means after blank. So it's a lot easier than what it looks. 6.6 I think is trying to show the with example 4. So ketero is appointment. Ketero is the appointment because this W is being attached to a noun to make it a definite suffix for the appointment. Ke is the from. Man is who, and then God makes it like with. Like ke, God, like around this word, kaman God means with who, no. No means it is. So with whom is the appointment. So which the textbook just gave like a million examples, but you could just do ke and then a word and then God with anything. So like ke isu God, with him. Ke mekina God, with the car. Ke seit God, with the girl. You can put basically anything inside of that and it'll make it with that person. And I think even here it starts to show other examples. So kebeda is a guy, and then God is with kebeda. Ke, and this is supposed to be ene actually. So it's supposed to just turn, it's not really using a ke, it's just using a regular k because ene begins with a vowel. So it's kene. God is with me. Again with ersu, which is him. Ke ersu, God is with him, and etc. So it's actually not that bad in my opinion, and hopefully that makes sense. The other one is ke bafit. It'll just make it before something. So ke mehid is an infinitive, but here it's going to be used like a verbal noun because it has a prefix attached to it, and then u. So this is kind of similar to the example that we saw above, and then bafit. So this is before something. So I'm going to say before his going, bunna yetetal. Bunna is coffee, metetat is to drink, and then this is conjugated into the imperfective for he will do something. So before his going, he will drink coffee. He'll have a cup of coffee before he leaves. Yeah, similar idea. I think my translation is more direct. Ka zia wahala. So zia I think means like that, if I remember correctly. Ke wahala is supposed to mean after. Min tisralle. Mesarat is to work or to do. Tisralle is second person masculine, which basically just means you male will do something. So after that, what will you do? What are you going to do after that? You can also use ke befit and ke bohala after like time. So ke and sa'at. And is one. Sa'at is like time, or it also means hour. Befit is before. So before an hour. So a better translation is just an hour ago. Tenat is yesterday. Ke tenat befit. So before yesterday, the day before yesterday. Ke hulet sa'at bohala. Hulet is 2. Ke hulet sa'at. Bohala is like after 2 hours, in 2 hours. Nega is tomorrow. Ke nega bohala is like after tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. There are even more specific phrases like ke sa'at befit. Like sa'at means like time, but in this like pattern or this phrasing, it means before noon. And then ke sa'at bohala means like in the afternoon. So this is just a very common phrase. I personally hate time situations in mnemonic, but they're actually pretty important to know. Yeah, and then it goes on to explain like when these are used with verbs, they kind of turn into subordinate clauses. And a subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. So like before he eats can't be a sentence by itself. There has to be some sort of like completeness to the sentence. So that's what the translation is meant to be. And these postpositions function normally with the verb, like we kind of saw above, but the meaning is based all on the main verb, which comes at the end of the sentence. I think the example is meant to be like here. So again, it's another kemehere situation. So mehid is to go, here is, this e is a noun suffix pronoun for my ownership. And I can bring that back up here. See, like if you put this e at the end of a noun, and in this case, since it's an infinitive, it's a verb, but it's acting like a verbal noun. So you're adding this ownership of me. Before my going is how I would translate that, because I want to make it into some sort of ing thing in the situation. So before my going, bunna itetalo is I will drink. So I'll have a cup of coffee before I leave. But in this next sentence, the meaning of the sentence can completely change because this ending verb meaning is different. So again, it's before my going, bunna itetao. This is perfective. This is past tense. This says I drank. So before I went, I drank coffee. Before I went, I had a cup of coffee. And the same thinking kind of continues on here. So hedhu is actually the perfective form of like I went. So here it's actually being used in a sort of verbal noun situation. So it's not just infinitives that can be affected by this. This is saying that like we saw examples with infinitives, but also other forms of verbs like the perfective form can be affected in these subordinate clause situations. So I would read through this completely on your own, and hopefully what I say in addition will be helpful. And that's how I think every single one of these sections should be handled. You should always read it yourself in full and try to understand it, and then have me sort of supplementally explain it. So in this example, this is using the hedhu, which is past tense of mehid. So mehid is the infinitive to go. Hedhu is like I went. So this is a perfective form of it. Ka hedhu buhala. So the ke buhala system we know means after. So how are we going to translate it in this sort of perfective tense? I would translate it sort of as after my going is my best attempt. And then we have bunna, which is coffee. Et alle. So this alle and this te, prefix and suffix together around the word met et at, makes it you male will do something. So you male will have a cup of coffee after I leave. Kahedhu bohala. So again, similar situation of after my going. Bunna et a. This is the perfective for he drank. So before I went, he drank. Before I went, you male will drink coffee. Kahedhu bohala. So this is meant to be after my leaving. Bunna et a. So actually, this is supposed to be saying like I would start backward and it'd be like you male drank coffee after I left. You had a cup of coffee after I left. Then questions and answers for more practice, substitution correlation drills for more practice, and then there's all the other sections at the bottom for more practice. So a pretty tough section, and I hope this helped, and I'll see you guys in the next one.